We're on then. Okay, so apologies, slightly belated start to proceedings, slight technical hitch with YouTube, but I think we're okay now. So welcome to Rushcliffe Borough Council's Cabinet meeting and a belated Happy New Year to everybody. I would like to remind everyone that the Cabinet meeting is being live streamed on YouTube, and the recording of the meeting will be available afterwards on the YouTube channel. In addition, under the Openness of Local Government Bodies Regulations 2014, other people may film, record, post on social media or blog from this meeting, but the use of such images are outside the control of the council. So with that, I'll move to item 1, apologies for absence. We are all here. Item 2, any declarations of interest, please? None. Item 3, minutes of 2 previous meetings, the 25th of November and the 9th of December. Can I have your approval to sign, approve those minutes, sign those minutes? Thank you very much indeed. Item 4, there are no citizens' questions. So we move on to item 5, which is the opposition group leaders' questions. And if I could invite Councillor Walker, please, to come forward. Thank you. Obviously familiar with the procedure, so over to you.
Good evening. So the mention of the site investigation and remediation in paragraph 4.22 of the report is welcome. What assurances can the portfolio holder for planning and housing provide that the local planning authority, Rushcliffe Borough Council, will seek to ensure the site is investigated for contamination and any necessary remediation is carried out?
Thank you, and I'll ask Councillor Upton to respond, please.
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you, Councillor Walker, for your question. A fairly long technical response, but I think it's worth making this. The matter will be considered during the planning application process. In consultation with the technical consultees, officers will consider the wording of and the need for any planning conditions relating to mitigating any potential contamination at that stage as part of the planning process. Now, when dealing with land potentially affected by contamination, planning conditions require the assessment and management of potential contamination to be undertaken in accordance with well-established risk management framework provided in the Environment Agency's Land Contamination Risk Management Guidance. Technical consultees will ensure that the information submitted to discharge the planning conditions on contamination is sufficiently robust to identify and address potential risks to human health and to the environment.
Thank you. Do you have a supplementary?
Thank you, Councillor Upton. The UK Health Security Agency wrote to RBC on the 7th of November stating that there's suitable justification for further radiation survey at Tolleton Park because radium-226 was detected in RBC's 2008 survey, and that subsequent ground disturbance, including new homes and services, may have moved the detected contamination or exposed new contamination. UKHSA advised this to ensure that health risks remain low. Can Cabinet confirm whether this survey has been scheduled and then provide the date, if not, explain why this recommendation has not yet been acted upon? Thank you.
Thank you. I would imagine the response is fairly similar to what you've just already said, but far away.
Well, it is, and I think there's more than one question there, but no matter. You referred to the Tolleton Park area, and I am well aware of the 2008 report and the UKSA's responses to officers' queries and the like. I am not aware that survey work has taken place yet. I will come back to you in 14 days if there's any change to my comments, but as I would emphasise, I don't believe Tolleton Park is part of the the red line, the subject of the Tolton Airfield planning application. I'll come back to you.
Okay, thank you. Right, we'll now move to item 6, which is the substantive item on the agenda. Just before I invite Councillor Upton to introduce the report, just make a comment that this is not a planning application, and so there is no approval to be given for any planning permission. This is to do with approving a framework under which planning applications will then be considered in the future. So, for instance, loads of factors, unlike highways, flooding and contamination, they will all be considered during the actual planning application process. They're not part of this particular process. So just to reiterate, this is about a framework for approving future planning applications. This is not the actual planning application itself. With that, I'll invite Councillor Upton, please.
Thank you, Chairman. I think it's fair to say that the proposed redevelopment of the former Tolton Airport site has created a significant number of comments from the public consultation and the exhibition that we had last year. And I'll not labour the point that the Chairman's just made. I'll just say it's nothing about giving planning approvals. This is totally different. Just a few key issues are at play on this to give a little bit of context before I come to the recommendations and the report. I mean, back in 2014, over 11 years ago, this strategic site, I emphasise it's a strategic housing site, was adopted as part of the Rushcliffe Local Plan, Part 1 Core Strategy, for around 4,000 new homes, 20 hectares of employment land, and supporting development and facilities such as schools and health centres and the like. And it is also included in the draft Greater Nottingham Strategic Plan, which is due for public examination in spring this year, probably around April or May, which looks at the Greater Nottingham Strategic Plan, taking us up to about the year 2041. So it's linked to that. As it has been since the plan was formed in 2014 and inspected by government inspectors. And now in the last 11 years, my apologies, in the last 11 years, there's been many discussions involving the council, statutory consultees, landowners, developers, to try and get a single site master plan, but progress has been slow, incredibly slow at times. And only in the last couple of years has any real progress been made, which has resulted in a development framework supplementary planning document. Quite a lot of words there. I'll refer to as an SPD from now on. And we don't have to have a master plan or an SPD, but we believe it's better to have a plan than not to have a plan, so that development of the whole site is a coordinated process. Without a plan, there is a real risk that individual planning applications will be made for parcels of land in a random sort of manner over the site without any real comprehensive site planning. And the SPD was given a cross-party support at the local development forum, which I've chaired for a number of years now, but we met this month and a unanimous cross-party support within the council to recommend Cabinet approves it. Now, there's some urgency to approve the SPD, as there is a 30th of June government cut-off for all SPDs. Beyond this date, a development framework for the site would have to be prepared as a new supplementary plan, or SP as I call it. And this would add months, if not more than a year, to the process. It effectively takes us back to square one and would add more and more delay to this site's vital contribution to the borough's housing land supply. And the land supply is critical, really. We need to maintain a 5-year housing land supply in order for the council to actually manage the development of where new housing goes within Rushcliffe. Without the 5-year land supply, we can't resist unplanned piecemeal development all over the borough. And we experienced that a few years ago around Eastleigh, for example. So without a master plan, there is also the risk that developers will take their current planning applications to appeal to the government on the grounds that the council has not determined their planning applications. In fact, one of the developers has had an application lodged since 2020. So, you know, it's quite some time ago. And if they do that and go to the government planning inspectorate and they approve it, then we as the council lose all control pretty much of how that development takes place. And I think, I make no personal comment, but I just make the statement, I think we're aware of the national housing crisis and the current government's ambition to have 1.5 million homes built during this parliament. But nevertheless, we've listened to the comments being made following the public consultation, and we propose to pause the decision to adopt the SPD. Whilst we ask again for more detailed information, we ask again, I emphasise that, especially concerning highways. So, Chairman, I proposed a revised recommendation, if you would like to put it on the screen, and one I prepared earlier, as they say, and I'll talk us through what I'm proposing as a pause and a new recommendation different to that in the published report. We're handing them out, are we? Okay, I'll let that be done. Thought it was a screen. No rush. I'll talk us through it fairly slowly because there's quite a lot there to absorb. But it's recommended that Cabinet here this evening, A, continues to support the principle of a development framework supplementary planning document, an SPD, for the Gamston-Tollerton Sustainable Urban Extension site. B, pauses the current SPD approval process in response to comments made to the public consultation, whilst more detailed information is requested on highways, especially the connectivity of the site to and across the A52. C, request the leader of the council to write to the site owners, developers, promoters, including Nottinghamshire County Council as landowner of part of the site, to ask them to urgently provide the outstanding highways solution, and also to Nottinghamshire County Council as the Highways Authority and National Highways to work proactively and at pace to reach a satisfactory highways solution so that this SPD can be brought back to Cabinet by the 10th of March 2026 for further consideration. D, requires that any further detailed highways and infrastructure delivery plan information is published for public consultation if appropriate. E, considers any future recommendations made by the Local Development Framework Group. And finally, F, thanks council officers and others for the significant amount of work that has been done. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you very much. Seconder, please, Councillor Brennan.
Thank you, Chairman. I won't repeat at length the comprehensive overview that Councillor Upton's provided, but it is a bit frustrating. There's still a considerable misunderstanding as to what this document actually represents, and has been said it's not a planning application. Approving it, if we were to approve it, does not mean that detailed planning applications that come forward will be approved. And it's not designed to address issues of potential contamination of the land flooding issues, or indeed highways matters, which will come forward in the IDP, which, if we can, we're going to put out for public consultation, which we're not required to do, but we think in the circumstances it would be useful exercise if we can to do so. As Councillor Upton said, the master plan is designed to impose some sense of order on what could potentially be an uncoordinated development, and with different landowners and different developers involved, is designed to raise the standards that we expect of them and to ensure that public amenities such as the provision of school or leisure facilities is developed in a logical way as part of a new community and not in an ad hoc manner. Borough councillors officers have been trying for a number of years, I think it feels like a lifetime to some of them, to get developers to work together on matters such as access to the sites and to engage National Highways with the scheme in a timely fashion, and it's proved extremely challenging. Hence, we don't have all the information at this stage. It's important that we don't pretend there are not some risks associated with pausing our decision to approve this tonight. We do run the risk that the Secretary of State will intervene, and given that this government is driven to achieve its declared housing targets, if they do, our ability to control what happens on that site, to coordinate the development and ensure it makes sense from the perspective of public amenities and local communities will be lost. I would suggest that there'd be no doubt that houses will still be built on that site if the Secretary of State intervenes, and we will have no local input into how they are built and to what standard. All that said, as Councillor Upton has said, we've listened very carefully to local people. We are local people. We all live in Rushcliffe. It affects all of us. And we reflected on the concerns that have been raised with us, and we are willing to pause our approval on this this evening and to redouble our efforts to urge the relevant parties to provide us with that outstanding information before this comes back to us again for consideration. So on that basis, I'm happy to second the revised recommendations as set out. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you very much indeed. Any other comments, Councillor Wheeler?
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. So thank Councillor Upton for putting the revised recommendations to us this evening. I think it's worth saying that, I've said this for over 10 years, that we absolutely do need a master plan for the site. And I think as a council, we're doing all we can to try to get to the stage of a master plan. The amount of meetings officers have had to try to bash heads together and to get to the point where we have a master plan, the amount of hours and the amount of taxpayer money and resources into that is extreme to be where we are now. And it is quite disappointing that despite developers and other partners knowing that we're going to do this master plan, knowing for months and potentially years this is coming, that we're still at the position where we've not got the data we need to try and make the decision that we need to ultimately make if the SPD can be approved or not. So do welcome the extension, and the emphasis really now is on the developers and other partners to meet this deadline and not let residents down, because we do need to make a decision, because it's going to be taken out of our hands if we don't, and out of the hands of local people. So we've got to absolutely acknowledge the stage, and it is personal, not for us to make sure that this is done right. As I to mention East Leek, actually the wider Gamston extension that happened 40 years ago, that was built on appeal, and we've still got issues at that estate now as a result of not controlling the process of that development. We've got open spaces that are still owned by developers and not maintained properly, lacking community facilities. This council had to step in and build a community hall there because one wasn't part of the plan, and etc. It can go on and on. So residents in Gamston know what can happen if we don't control the process and if we hand it over to the government to make that decision. We don't want to see history repeat itself. It would be effectively 10 times worse with the size of development, the impact it would have on the areas that myself and Councillor Verdi represent, especially, and obviously to the Tartan area as well. So in my mind, it's crucial we do have this master plan so we can put that framework there and effectively hold developers to account when they are putting their planning applications down the line. It's absolutely right to say, as already noted, that there is that risk. As the government are insisting that we still have the housing targets, that we have the 5-year land supply, and if we do go below that, and we are very close to that red line as it is now there, then potentially this development go out of hands, and also other areas of land close by could potentially put forward the development by developers on top of this. So we do have to bear that in mind when making these decisions. So I think the public do need to be, and I know many are aware of that facts, and although I very much welcome the fact we are giving as many opportunities as possible for our partners to deliver and to do this, we also have to say and be clear to people, it's not in our gift to give, that we cannot force developers or other councils to give us that information. We are asking nicely, politely. We've made it absolutely clear in terms of meetings, but we cannot force them to do this. So effectively, it's now on them to deliver for residents the information. Otherwise, we're going to have to make the decision without that and be in the position that we would be in today with the original recommendations. So I very much hope that that information comes forwards and we can actually make the decision with the full facts and the information in front of us in March. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Verdi.
Thank you, Chairman. I think, as already highlighted, Cabinet colleagues, are pretty much aligned on the fundamental rationale for this recommendation. So I don't want to repeat what's already been said. However, I think very briefly, I would like to reiterate that ultimately this is not about slowing progress. It is about strengthening it. And a well evidence framework, as has already been discussed, will provide that clarity, I think, which we are seeking and which our residents are seeking in terms of how this moves forward. So for communities, certainly for developers, it will provide a stronger basis for any future decision which we make as Cabinet. So that's why I think it's worth repeating that. But I think the pause now is a responsible course of action, and I'm happy to support. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any other comments at all? No. Just before I ask for a vote, just to highlight or reiterate one of the points that Councillor Brennan made is that what we don't want is for the government to intervene and basically take control out of our hands completely and basically allow a development that would not have any control from us at all. So I think it's important that we do make sure that we do have that control. And to just reiterate what I said at the beginning as well, that these other issues like highways, flooding, contamination, etc., they have to be satisfied in the actual planning application process itself when the actual applications come in. They're not for this particular framework tonight. So with that, you have had the recommendations moved and seconded. All those in favour of those recommendations, please. Which is unanimous. So thank you very much indeed. With that, that's the end of the agenda. That's the only item. Therefore, thank you for attendance. Thank you for members of the public attending, and I'll declare the meeting closed.